Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin is definitely making waves in the space travel industry, but not in the way you might expect. With their latest NS-31 mission, they've shown the world that space travel is no longer just for trained astronauts or scientific pioneers. Now, if you have a big enough bank account, you can call yourself an astronaut too. That's right, no training, no experience, just money. The new Shepard rocket ride is available to anyone who can afford it. And even more surprising? The FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration, has given this all a green light. But not everyone's on board. In fact, even people from within the government have serious doubts. Some are going so far as to say the entire NS-31 flight might not have been real at all. It sounds crazy, but this idea, that space is now accessible to the ultra-wealthy with no strings attached, is what's driving the controversy. Blue Origin's latest mission isn't just raising eyebrows. It's sparking a real debate about what it means to be an astronaut in this new era of commercial space tourism. 6 people flew on the new Shepard spacecraft in the NS-31 mission, including philanthropist Lauren Sanchez, who also happens to be Jeff Bezos' fiancée, and pop star Katy Perry. All of them are now officially listed on the FAA's website as astronauts. They share this recognition with professionals from NASA's SpaceX Crew 9, Crew 10, and even the Fram 2 mission. So naturally people are asking, how is that fair? What does being an astronaut really mean anymore? The story goes back to 2004, when the FAA launched a program to award commercial astronaut wings to anyone flying above 50 statute miles, or around 80 kilometers from Earth. But that program ended in December 2021. Now, instead of issuing physical wings, the FAA simply adds names to its website. Anyone who goes on an FAA-licensed launch and passes the 50-mile mark gets listed. It doesn't matter whether they actually did anything on the mission. That's why people like Katy Perry and Lauren Sanchez now appear alongside individuals who've undergone years of brutal astronaut training and flown dangerous missions in space. All they needed was a seat on a suborbital flight, and suddenly they're part of a club once reserved for highly trained elite professionals. But this new definition doesn't sit well with everyone. U.S. Secretary of Transportation Sean Duffy, for example, has openly questioned whether these people should really be considered astronauts. According to the FAA's old standards, astronauts had to perform tasks that contributed to public safety or advanced human spaceflight. These NS-31 passengers didn't do any of that. They simply took a ride in an automated spacecraft, one that doesn't even require crew to operate. So what role did they actually play? Nothing critical. No control panels, no life support systems to manage, just float, smile, and wave for the camera. It's the space equivalent of being a passenger on a roller coaster and then calling yourself an engineer. To understand the difference, just look at how NASA prepares its astronauts. It's not just a job, it's an intense years-long journey. NASA astronauts often hold PhDs in science, engineering, or medicine. They've spent time in extreme conditions like high-risk aviation or scientific fieldwork. Once selected, they undergo rigorous physical training to counteract the effects of microgravity, including muscle loss and bone density reduction. They train in underwater environments that simulate weightlessness, run emergency survival drills, and even learn Russian to communicate aboard the International Space Station. These are not tourists. These are people who dedicate their lives to space exploration and have the technical knowledge to solve complex problems in life-or-death situations. Now contrast that with the NS-31 passengers. Aside from 2 individuals, Aisha, a former NASA rocket scientist, and Amanda Nguyen, who did some research work with NASA, most of the people on board had little to no relevant experience. Their only real qualification? They could afford a ticket. Their training lasted only a few hours, maybe a day at most. And yet they walked away with the same recognition as seasoned professionals who spent years training for one mission. It's easy to see why many former NASA astronauts are having a hard time accepting this new reality. Blue Origin's counterargument is that their spacecraft crosses the Kármán line, which is 100 kilometers above Earth and often considered the boundary of space. According to them, that's enough to earn the astronaut title. By comparison, competitors like Virgin Galactic typically fly up to around 80 to 90 kilometers. Bezos even hinted that flights not crossing this threshold should have an asterisk next to the astronaut names. But that logic feels like a convenient technicality, especially when you consider how little these passengers actually contribute during their flight. Some critics say we shouldn't be arguing over a few kilometers of altitude. We should be talking about the integrity of what it means to be an astronaut. The truth is, calling these individuals astronauts might just be a clever marketing move. Let's be honest, space tourist doesn't have the same prestige. But that's what they are, Wealthy passengers who bought a thrilling experience, not professionals risking their lives to advance science or humanity's presence in space. And sure, Jeff Bezos knows the difference. He's not foolish enough to believe a paying customer is the same as a NASA pilot. But maybe, just maybe, the goal here isn't to redefine the word astronaut. It's to shape public perception in a way that benefits the Blue Origin brand. When high-profile names get involved in missions like these, it's no longer just a flight. It becomes a global event. The science often takes a back seat and media coverage drives the narrative. Everyone's watching, not just to see a technical achievement but to experience a story. The moment becomes part of a larger spectacle. So when NS-31 carried names like Katy Perry and Lauren Sanchez, the attention it received wasn't just about reaching space, it was about who reached it. And in that moment, the mission's nature shifted from exploratory to performative. The stage was set and the audience was the world. But that leads us to a deeper question. The Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, used to define who could be officially called an astronaut. Their criteria were specific: altitude, flight role, and critical mission contribution. However, that line has blurred in recent years. Blue Origin's NS-31 crew, for instance, appears on FAA listings just like trained NASA astronauts. They did reach the 50-mile boundary that some consider the edge of space, but they didn't operate the spacecraft, go through extensive astronaut training, or carry out essential mission tasks. So, can they really be called astronauts? It's a debate that's gaining traction. Are we redefining what it means to be an astronaut just because celebrities made it into space? Is it fair to those who underwent years of physical, mental, and technical preparation? Those who trained to survive worst-case scenarios, run diagnostics in emergencies, and live in orbit for months? Should merely crossing a height threshold be enough to earn the same title as someone who worked on the International Space Station? Or does the term astronaut still deserve to mean something more? It's a question only you can answer, and we'd love to hear your thoughts. But the controversy surrounding NS-31 doesn't stop with the astronaut label. A more serious question is being raised by skeptics online. Was it even real? That's right. Among a wave of internet speculation, some people are asking whether Blue Origin's mission was staged. In an age where deepfakes and CGI can mimic reality, this suspicion isn't unheard of. From suspiciously smooth landings to camera-perfect visuals, some critics believe that what we saw might not have been an authentic space mission but rather a performance dressed up as one. Let's start with the visuals. Critics say the footage from NS-31 looks too polished, like something out of a movie rather than a real-time flight. They've pointed to camera angles, lighting, and the perfect framing of every shot as evidence that the whole thing could have been produced using CGI or AI-generated video. In their eyes, the mission feels like a scripted broadcast, lacking the rawness and spontaneity you'd expect from an actual space launch. Was it too cinematic? Too choreographed? That's what some are suggesting. Then there's the capsule's landing. Viewers have noted how remarkably smooth the descent appeared, almost unbelievably so. The capsule glided to the ground with barely a bounce, prompting some to question whether a landing from space could really look like that. Shouldn't there be dust clouds, jolts, or visible stress on the crew? The lack of chaos has caused some to suspect that it might have been simulated. To them, it resembled a studio production rather than a return from microgravity. It's the kind of landing that looks too perfect to trust. And perhaps the most suspicious moment, at least in the eyes of critics, is the door-opening scene. Just before Jeff Bezos arrives with tools in hand, someone from inside the capsule opens the hatch. This small detail has caused a big uproar. If the capsule needed Bezos to open it from the outside, why was it opened from within before he even arrived? Was this moment genuine or was it all for show? Was Bezos performing for the cameras? Was the dramatic rescue of the capsule's occupants just part of a marketing stunt? Still, let's take a moment to look at the other side, the counterarguments that push back against these conspiracy theories. First, the footage. AI detection tools have been used to analyze the video content of NS-31, and the results are clear. These tools indicate a very low likelihood of AI manipulation, somewhere between 0 to 5%. That suggests the visuals are genuine and not computer-generated. Advanced AI tools, trained to spot even the slightest signs of synthetic content, couldn't find anything unusual. This is a strong point in favor of authenticity. Next, the capsule's smooth landing isn't new or unexpected. Blue Origin has completed multiple missions with similar outcomes. This wasn't their first time doing it, it was their 11th. The spacecraft uses a specially designed airflow-based system, which softens the descent and reduces final impact significantly. In fact, if you listen carefully, there are two distinct audio cues, jerks that help absorb shock just before touchdown. It's a sophisticated design that prioritizes passenger safety, not something unusual. The landing may look gentle, but that's the result of technology, not trickery. As for the door moment, yes, someone did open it from the inside before Bezos arrived with his tools. But there's a plausible explanation for that too. Blue Origin's flights are tightly scripted, and every step is rehearsed. Opening the door from the inside could have been a scheduled part of the post-landing protocol, possibly involving crew communication tests or exit drills. These are common in test missions and commercial flights alike. Just because it looked theatrical doesn't mean it was staged. Sometimes, routine operations happen to line up with dramatic visuals. Still, that doesn't stop people from speculating. Some believe Jeff Bezos showing up with a tool in hand wasn't about necessity, it was about optics. A PR moment. A symbolic gesture. And considering the flight's emphasis on being the first all-female crew aboard a Blue Origin mission, there's reason to think the mission was partly shaped by branding goals. Diversity, representation, and media-friendly imagery all play into modern space marketing. Critics argue this flight wasn't about pushing boundaries of exploration, it was about visibility, inclusion, and generating buzz. But again, that doesn't necessarily mean it was fake. Public relations and real science can coexist. We live in a time when commercial space companies need visibility to attract funding and public interest. Even NASA has leaned into this dynamic, broadcasting launches, hosting celebrity guests, and partnering with influencers. So, if Blue Origin crafted the moment to feel symbolic and emotionally resonant, that doesn't disqualify it from being real. It may just reflect the evolving relationship between space travel and media. A fusion of achievement and audience engagement. So was NS-31 fake? Or are we simply adjusting to a new kind of space travel? One that comes packaged with symbolism, celebrities, and social media-ready visuals? The evidence supports that the mission did happen. The footage passed AI scrutiny. The landing system is proven. The odd door moment has logical explanations. And most importantly, Blue Origin has a track record. This wasn't their only flight, it was one of many. So unless we're prepared to doubt their entire flight history, there's little reason to believe this one was fundamentally different. On Monday, April 14, 2025, Blue Origin successfully completed its 11th human spaceflight under the new Shepard program. The mission lifted off from Launch Site 1 in West Texas and lasted about 11 minutes. It featured an all-female crew, marking a milestone for the private space company. The flight carried high-profile passengers like singer Katy Perry, media personality Gayle King, Jeff Bezos' fiancée Lauren Sanchez, and entrepreneurs Aisha Bowe, Carrie-Anne Flynn, and Amanda Gorman. Though brief, the journey offered them a few precious minutes of weightlessness beyond the Kármán line, the edge of internationally recognized space. Inside the capsule, the crew experienced microgravity for roughly 4 minutes. During this time, each of them floated freely, sharing smiles, laughter, and awe as they looked out the window into the vast blackness of space. Some of them brought small personal items for the trip, mementos, symbolic artifacts, and even zero-gravity indicators. These indicators are objects designed to float as soon as the spacecraft enters microgravity, signaling that the passengers have officially entered space. For a few minutes they let go, both physically and emotionally, and simply existed above the Earth, free of its pull. After returning safely to the ground, each passenger shared heartfelt words about their journey. Katy Perry described it as the highest high, adding that she felt surrendered to the unknown and connected to love. The sentiment, while poetic, was genuine. This wasn't just a ride, it was a moment of profound emotional release, a reminder that space has a way of changing people. The awe that fills a person upon seeing Earth from above is hard to describe. Even a short flight can have a lifelong impact on the passengers lucky enough to take it. Among the inspirations for this flight, Perry cited astronaut Sally Ride, the first American woman to go to space. Sally Ride's story is legendary. Back in 1977, women were just beginning to break through NASA's male-dominated astronaut corps. Before that, all astronauts were required to be military test pilots, a role not open to women at the time. Ride defied those norms. Armed with a PhD in physics from Stanford, she joined NASA's astronaut class, trained rigorously, and flew aboard the Space Shuttle Challenger in 1983. She wasn't just a passenger, she operated the robotic arm and performed essential tasks. Sally Ride's impact didn't stop there. After her flights, she became a critical voice in the investigations of the Challenger and Columbia shuttle disasters. Later, she focused on education and outreach, becoming a champion for young women in science. Her legacy is deep, and her accomplishments helped shift NASA's perspective on gender. That's what made her a true astronaut, not just her flight, but her contribution to science and exploration. And when people compare the efforts of astronauts like Ride to the celebrity passengers on NS-31, it becomes clear why some find the title astronaut hard to give away lightly. That brings us to the technical definition of an astronaut. The FAA used to have a relatively simple standard: reach an altitude of at least 50 miles 80 kilometers, and you're considered an astronaut. But on July 20, 2021, that changed. New rules stated that, in addition to reaching space, a person must perform duties that contribute to human spaceflight safety or mission-critical tasks. That revision was aimed at differentiating between those who merely ride along and those who operate, support, or guide the mission. By that standard, NS-31's passengers fall short of the mark. So let's be honest, was NS-31 really a space mission in the traditional sense, or was it a highly marketed suborbital hop? The flight lasted only 11 minutes. The crew didn't perform any scientific experiments, conduct operations, or make decisions during the flight. They were passengers, not pilots, engineers, or scientists. They enjoyed a moment of zero gravity, looked at Earth, and came back. Yes, it was beautiful. Yes, it was historic in its own way. But does that make someone an astronaut? Or does it make them a very fortunate tourist with a ticket to the stars? In contrast to the brief and tourist-style missions of Blue Origin's New Shepard, the crew members aboard missions like SpaceX's Crew Dragon Fram 2 and Polaris Dawn are widely recognized as real astronauts, both by modern definitions and traditional standards. These are not short suborbital trips lasting a few minutes, but long-duration orbital missions that demand rigorous preparation. These missions involve extensive astronaut training, often in collaboration with NASA, where the training isn't just symbolic, it's absolutely critical for mission success and safety. Every element, from physical endurance to technical readiness, is thoroughly tested, making the distinction between tourist and astronaut very clear. Take Polaris Dawn for example. The crew went through more than 2 years of intense preparation starting back in May 2022. Their training regimen included a wide range of critical activities: centrifuge sessions to simulate G-forces, hundreds of hours inside SpaceX's Dragon capsule simulators, survival training for emergency landings, skydiving, high-performance jet flights, and even zero-gravity flight simulations. They also had to complete classroom academics and medical testing. One of the standout features of this training was the EVA, extravehicular activity, preparation, which involved underwater sessions and suspension training to simulate working outside the spacecraft in microgravity. What's more, some of the Polaris Dawn crew members already had deep experience with NASA. Sarah Gillis was previously responsible for training NASA astronauts for SpaceX missions, and Anna Menon worked as a biomedical flight controller aboard the International Space Station. That kind of expertise doesn't just happen overnight. It highlights how Polaris Dawn wasn't just about going to space, it was about pushing the boundaries of human spaceflight through serious technical work and coordinated teamwork. This level of professionalism is worlds apart from the kind of quick training Blue Origin offers for their suborbital rides. Similarly, the Fram 2 mission was no less impressive. The crew went through over 8 months of intensive training in preparation for an orbital flight over Earth's poles, a flight path that had never been attempted by humans before. Their sessions included launch rehearsals, simulations, and emergency preparedness drills. While fewer details are publicly available compared to Polaris Dawn, it's known that Fram 2's mission had the support of both NASA and SpaceX and included scientific research objectives. This level of preparation made it clear that the mission was about more than just reaching orbit, it was about doing meaningful science in space. The Fram 2 team wasn't composed of rookies either. It included experienced explorers who had previously participated in polar expeditions, which helped them adapt to the mission's unique demands. Their responsibilities included conducting 22 scientific experiments related to human health and environmental monitoring in space. This type of research is valuable for NASA and other space agencies, especially for planning future long-duration missions. From monitoring how the body reacts to microgravity to studying how space affects sleep and hormone levels, the crew's work contributes directly to improving astronaut safety and mission effectiveness. Missions like Polaris Dawn also contribute to advancements in space safety by testing groundbreaking equipment under real conditions. One highlight of Polaris Dawn was the first-ever commercial spacewalk. This required the crew to wear newly designed EVA suits by SpaceX. These suits didn't use a traditional life support backpack and had to go through rigorous testing in hyperbaric chambers and simulated EVA scenarios. Engineers developed new operational procedures to reduce the risks of exposure to micrometeoroids and solar radiation. These innovations don't just benefit Polaris Dawn, they help set the standard for future missions, including NASA's Artemis lunar program. Polaris Dawn also ventured far beyond typical orbital altitudes, reaching a record-setting 870 miles above Earth. This altitude took the crew into parts of the Van Allen radiation belts, where they experienced radiation exposure equivalent to 20 years of normal Earth-based exposure, within just a few hours. The mission's results provided rare and valuable data on the effects of cosmic radiation on the human body, helping researchers design better shielding and safety measures for deep space missions to the Moon and Mars. This isn't tourist stuff, it's frontier science and real risk. In total, the Polaris Dawn mission involved nearly 40 experiments focused on human physiology in space. These ranged from advanced medical monitoring to emergency preparedness drills, all of which are crucial for ensuring astronaut safety during long-duration missions. SpaceX and the Polaris Dawn team worked together to set high standards for risk assessment, communication, and contingency response for all mission phases: launch, EVA, re-entry. Their model of transparency and iterative review is now a blueprint for commercial human spaceflight going forward, helping build public trust in this emerging field. FRAM-2 also made its mark. It was the first human mission to successfully reach and operate in a polar orbit, flying over both the North and South Poles. This kind of orbit is far more complex than typical equatorial routes. It requires precise navigation and more fuel, making mission planning even more critical. The data gathered from FRAM-2 about spacecraft operations and human behavior in this unique environment will be crucial for future missions that need diverse orbital paths, for example, Earth observation, lunar transfers, or interplanetary travel. The crew conducted scientific experiments during the mission that yielded valuable data. They used urine test strips to track hormone changes, wellness rings to monitor sleep, and observed how space travel affects balance and motion sickness. These insights are directly applicable to space medicine and astronaut care for longer-term missions. FRAM-2 also provided visual observations of auroras and Earth's polar environments. These have implications for understanding space weather and its potential effects on satellites, communications, and even power grids, matters of public and commercial importance. One of the final achievements of FRAM-2 was the safe splashdown off the coast of California, marking the first time SpaceX recovered a Dragon capsule on the West Coast. This demonstrated SpaceX's flexibility in handling missions from different launch and recovery zones, which is vital for scaling up space operations globally. Following splashdown, a key mission test evaluated whether astronauts could exit the capsule on their own without outside help. This test is especially relevant for future Moon or Mars landings, where ground teams might not be immediately available, so the ability to self-egress is an essential step forward. And beyond the technical and scientific milestones, FRAM-2 also aimed to educate and inspire. Through its onboard amateur radio system and a ham radio competition tied to the mission, it engaged students and space enthusiasts from around the world. These interactions brought space science into classrooms and homes, helping the public connect with the human side of exploration and safety in space. When people hear astronauts speaking from polar orbit or learn how their bodies react to microgravity, it turns abstract science into something tangible and meaningful. So, when we compare these missions to Blue Origin's NS-31, the difference is stark. The crews aboard FRAM-2 and Polaris Dawn went through real astronaut training, undertook genuine scientific and technical challenges, and faced high-risk environments. Their missions weren't joyrides, they were testbeds for the future of human space exploration. They trained like astronauts, worked like astronauts, and risked their lives like astronauts. So yes, they've truly earned the title. But what do you think? Do you agree with the idea that not all space travelers are astronauts? Or do you think everyone who crosses the Kármán line deserves the title? Let me know your thoughts in the comments.